I want to talk with our friend, conservative commentator Scott Ott, co-host of Right Angle at BillWhittle.com and political satirist at ScrappleFace.com. Hey, Scott, good morning.
Good morning, Dave.
I can imagine that you would have probably a week's worth of reactions to the Kavanaugh hearing. Just give us a couple minutes worth.
Well, as ScrappleFace.com, my satire site, has been very busy lately, and this is a tough issue because I think most people have a hard time making a division between what may or may not have happened between Brett Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford, the person who's accused him of sexual molestation, along with others, and their own situations. There are lots of women and men out there who have been sexually molested. And because of that, when someone else tells a story about sexual molestation, their instinct is to believe immediately, only because they know that either their story has been kept secret or they tried to tell someone and they were not believed.
And because it's such a horrific accusation that we all want to feel sorry for the victim, regardless of whether or not we understand the facts of what actually occurred.
Americans love an underdog. You know, we root for the person who is in the position of the oppressed or the downtrodden, and so it's really hard to hear this. Now, you know, my natural instinct, because I used to run an organization that helped women who were victims of rape and domestic violence, and I was a phone volunteer for that network. My instinct is to listen immediately when somebody makes an accusation and to try as much as possible to help that person take the next step in their life. And so when you hear this, your heart goes out. On the other hand, you wonder why Senator Dianne Feinstein, the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, sat on this accusation from July until after the hearings were over, did not question Brett Kavanaugh about it until her office, someone in her office, leaked the information. You wonder why, if the FBI had executed a polygraph test, a lie detector test, that those results were not brought up at the hearing. You wonder why this woman, who the Republicans said, hey, we don't want to embarrass you and drag you in front of the committee. We'll send somebody out to interview you where you live because we know you're afraid of flying. So we'll come out there and do that for you. Why she still was dragged in front of the committee. And we later found out she did not know there was an offer on the table to have somebody come and interview her privately, which she would have embraced. All of this makes the natural skepticism in us say, hey, wait a minute. If this was a legit accusation, wouldn't Feinstein have immediately jumped on that and began the investigation, reported it to the FBI, and said, hey, let's find out what really happened here? Well, and it makes me think that they're both being used. The nominee and the accuser are being used.
Well, it seemed to me that this is akin to what we frequently see in presidential elections, and that is referred to as the October surprise. You bring down an allegation that's so horrific, and there's no time before the election to prove or disprove it. But the other thing that strikes me, and I know that people say it, and certainly I believe it, is that there are a lot of reasons that women don't talk about their assaults at the time they happen, and it's a very emotional thing. I understand that. I believe that's true. I think it needs to change. People need to talk about their problems when their problems occur. Because 36 years later, I mean, you got to look at the fact that this man is a federal judge. He'd gone through hearings before. Nobody brought any of this kind of thing up until now. And that's got to make you wonder what's going on here. It has to be political. And I'm not even calling Dr. Ford a liar, just saying that, you know, the way this has been handled is shameless.
And I think the greatest harm here, in addition to our Constitution, our American judicial system, our, political comity, if ever there was such a thing, the greatest harm is actually to abused women, to women who are victims of rape, domestic violence, sexual molestation, and assault. Those women will now have a greater time, or a more difficult time, being believed because of this political sham, the way the Democrats are running it. If they really cared about women, their first concern would not have been, oh, wow, we can score some points on this. Let's hold this to the last minute. And actually, I don't think Feinstein intended to release it at all. I think somebody in her office said, that's enough of this. We're going to get this guy, and released it, because I think Feinstein knew that there wasn't enough there to be able to make a difference in the nomination process. So now women have to face this accusation with even greater credibility problems. And I've told a friend of mine who was actually a victim of sexual assault in the workplace, sexual harassment, I said, look, don't hitch your wagon to this star, because, you know, when women are going, hey, just like Christine Blasey Ford, this happened to me, you may be linking yourself to someone who's got deep issues and political conflicts that are not like your situation. Your situation stands alone. If something bad happened to you, tell someone about it. Get help.
Yeah.
Do it immediately.
Yeah. Yesterday I was looking, just kind of an aside here, I was looking at some pictures of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and I saw a picture of from early in the year. I mean, right in the first part of the year, there was a picture of Senator Coons, who I was looking up because he made some interesting comments. And the picture was of the Senate Judiciary Committee with Al Franken sitting right next to him. And this was just before Franken left the Senate. And I thought, boy, I wish he was still on that committee. I would love to have heard his questioning on this particular issue.
Especially given what we know about him. But the troubling thing here, Dave, is that there are a lot of things we don't know about our senators. And if we did a roll call and said everybody has to be absolutely honest, step across this line. Yeah. If you have never gotten drunk beyond control, if you have never forced yourself on a person of the opposite sex, if you've never conducted yourself in an undignified manner that would later jeopardize your nomination to the Supreme Court, were you to have to sit before such a committee.
What do you think this goes now? What's going to happen?
My gut is that Brett Kavanaugh is still going to be approved unless he voluntarily pulls out or the president withdraws his nomination, neither of which seem likely. I think that he didn't look good when he was talking about his drinking, but you look back at it and you go, holy cow, how did this become about teenage or college drinking?
Right.
And who can stand before that bar clean as a whistle?
Yeah.
But I think he gets approved.
You think they're going to vote soon, or is this going to get pushed back till after the election?
I think the Democrats will do anything they can to delay it, but I think they're making a mistake here, politically speaking, purely politically speaking, because I think that a sleepy Trump nation, so to speak, was sitting back on their haunches thinking everything would be okay and was not going to participate very actively in the midterms, but they've now awakened this sleeping giant, and I think the Democrats will wind up harming themselves if they string this till after the election. Very interesting.
Very interesting. Thank you, Scott. We'll get back to you because enjoy the conversation. Scott Ott, co-host of Right Angle. You'll find him at Bill Whittle with WHITTLE.com. And Scott is also a political satirist at his website, Scrapple with 2 P's, scrappleface.com.